In the famous narrative, young David slays Goliath, the giant Philistine warrior, using a round pebble he collected from a brook. But a closer look at the story reveals some surprises. Goliath appeared every day, calling for a single Israelite to take him on. His huge size and fierce appearance struck terror in their hearts. Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, and they were panic-stricken and very much afraid. This went on for 40 days, as no one had the courage to confront Goliath. This begs an important question. Who said that Israelites had to agree to his offer of one-to-one combat? Both the Israelites and the Philistines had large armies facing each other on opposing mountains. Why did the Israelites not reject Goliath's proposal and opt for battle on their own terms? Goliath wasn't satisfied with silently displaying his towering stature and imposing armor. He also repeatedly taunted and cursed the Israelites and David. It seems clear that those profanities were directed at the GD of Israel, as David himself acknowledged, for he taunted the armies of the living God. Now, it is not uncommon for soldiers to hurl insults at their enemies, but here it seems to play an oversized role. And why turn a battle over land into a religious dispute? In desperation, King Saul offered a huge reward to anyone who would take down Goliath, his daughter's hand in marriage, great wealth, and much more. Was no one motivated to fight for his king and country, to the extent that he had to offer a reward? Even more staggering, even with that enormous prize, not a single person was willing to do so. Indeed, David was amazed when he was told about the offer. 6 Because he found it incredible that there was still no takers. When David sprinted towards Goliath, the giant stayed put, sensing no danger at all. Surely Goliath had heard of a slingshot. Why was he not more cautious? This problem led modern researchers to come up with all kinds of explanations, including that Goliath had a congenital eye problem, or that the sun was in his eyes. But surely, all that makes no sense. Why would the Israelites fear someone half-blind, and who would stand facing the enemy with the sun in his eyes? After Goliath was struck down, the Philistines fled. This was a complete breach of the deal, namely that whichever side prevailed would be declared the victor. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, we shall be slaves to you. But if I overcome him, and kill him, you shall be slaves to us and serve us. No one would be shocked that the Philistines failed to keep their promise. We would expect no less. But why did they flee? They had a large and capable army behind Goliath. Why didn't they show up to fight? The story ends with Goliath's head and weapons being brought to Jerusalem. The temple had not yet been built, and commentaries explain that it refers to Nob, then the site of the tabernacle. Either way, it seems surprising to bring such gory items to the holiest place on earth. In fact, it was forbidden to even use metal objects to cut the stones during the construction of the altar, so as to separate the temple from any symbol of violence. We need to understand that the confrontation between the Philistines and the Israelites was primarily a battle for the supremacy of values. The Philistines took the position that physical power reigned supreme. Their symbol was therefore Goliath, a giant hulk of a man, a warrior of monstrous proportions. The story describes in terrifying detail the enormous weapons that Goliath carried, emphasizing that for him it was all about the physical dimensions. In contrast, the Israelites held spiritual strength in the highest regard. Little David and his puny stone in his humble sling perfectly represented the orientation that, in the words of the prophet Zechariah, "Not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord Almighty." Which is why the story highlights that David was wearing no armor and carried no sword. Goliath's constant taunting was therefore of central import. He was mocking, trying to delegitimize the Israelites' ideals. The Philistines considered the Israelites' worship of an invisible deity ridiculous. They were convinced that if they could incontrovertibly demonstrate that their way, of power and strength, was right, then the Israelites would be rendered powerless. Of course, the Israelites could have rejected Goliath's proposition and pursued a conventional battle, but the altercation was not primarily about the battlefield. It was overwhelmingly a challenge to the value system that the Israelites represented. The Philistines were not looking to kill as many people as possible. They just demanded capitulation to the ideas they championed.